We are joined on this episode by a DGA member who has served as first assistant director on a number of features and television shows. A few of those films, including Thoroughbreds, Promising Young Woman, and Paper Street Pictures' own picture from Lucky McKee, Old Man, which is out now on VOD and streaming on Hulu, by the way. He's Michael Meador. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the program here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to talk to you because we haven't really dove into your particular area of expertise yet. So excited to share with people a little more about the world of the AD.
Exciting world it is.
It certainly can be. But before we jump into the weeds about the position itself, we kind of always go way, way back and typically start off by asking you, what gave you the bug or got you interested in film and entertainment? Was there something like an experience, a movie, a particular piece of pop culture that maybe got you hooked, or did you find your way in through something corporate or elsewhere?
When I was younger, high school, late high school, early college, my dream was to be the next David Letterman. That was where I saw myself going. That's what I wanted. And when I went to college, I said, well, I can't major in being David Letterman, so I got to do something that's not a waste of my time and money. So I majored in communications, as most of us average to below average people tend to do. And I just really enjoyed all the process of making music videos and commercials and doing all these things. And it got me very interested. And I figured if I, got into the business in one way, I would somehow be able to smartly work myself into in front of camera and be the new David Letterman.
Interesting. Okay. So there was a performative aspect to you, but you just wanted to jump in somehow in something production oriented. Didn't David Letterman himself actually get a communications degree? I feel like he used to reference that back in the day, but maybe not.
Yes, that's how, we do.
Right. In that regard, you got proper college schooling then, and you said a communications degree. Were you thinking, if not Letterman, were you thinking radio? Were you thinking television? Were you just thinking some other aspect of production to kind of get your way in?
No, not at first. Listen, I was told by a lot of people that I have a face that was built for radio, so I should consider that. But then they would follow it up with, although your voice is made for silent movies, so not really sure where you're going to go with all that. But it didn't matter because life had different plans, and my college girlfriend and I got married and had our first baby very early, and life took its own course as it normally does.
Truer words were never spoken. So what was your first paid gig in the production space, and how did you eventually settle into the niche that you're in now, which is assistant directing?
Well, it started out, like I said, I had a child very young. I was working in a law firm and I got laid off. So I was looking for work. And my best friend from high school had moved to LA and he was working on films. And he had called me and told me he was coming to town to work on this movie. And he kind of got me an internship on it. I mean, he thought he was getting me a PA job. Our plan was he called up and quit, and I called up 5 minutes later looking for work because, neither one of us really understood the industry that well at that point. But they brought me on as an unpaid intern at first, and I just worked hard. And I was in the office at first because I started in pre-production. But I knew where I wanted to go, and I've always been kind of determined. So when they told me I wasn't going to move to set, I threatened to quit unless I could go to set. I was like, if I'm going to not get paid, I wanted to learn a skill that would keep me on set. So they moved me on set. And then after a couple of weeks, a lot of the AD staff left to go do the sequel to Die Hard. And they were going to bring me, but I had felt I owed the people who hired me something, so I told them I would stay. But in the course of doing all this, I found out that every other PA was getting paid. I was the only unpaid person, so I was like, that's kind of not fair. And they needed to keep me so bad, and I felt like, to a certain degree, I'd done a good enough job that they then paid me retroactively for the whole job. So nice. I felt like I was at least going in the right, felt I was moving in the right path forward because I was seen to be important enough that they would drop money they didn't have to drop to keep me there. And from there, this industry is in a lot of ways very, very simple. It's you make yourself necessary. You find out who needs your help. You help them, and you make yourself someone who no production wants to live without. And that's kind of, the next couple of years, I went through everything. I was a grip for a couple of jobs. I was craft service. I worked in the art department. I actually did post-production accounting on Casino. I did anything because I had a kid at home and I had to work. So any work that came my way, I would do. And I just kept cataloging where I should go, where I wanted to end up, what would be my ultimate goal. And that's when I started realizing, and now I say it all the time, ADs are born, not made. Obviously gaining experience is very, very important, but with the AD, it's a lot about how you think and the way you're able to communicate and solve problems together with a team. And I just kind of do that naturally. That's kind of naturally who I am normally. So it just fit that I decided that's what I want to do. And then after a few years, I also decided that I never wanted to be the UPM or the producer or whatever. I like being on set. I like being next to the director. I like being next to the DP, not quite as much, but I like being with those people and being on set and being where I feel the magic happens. Now, I'm not taking anything away from editing. I'm not taking away anything from writing, but I feel like when you're on set, that's when, you can rewrite, you can edit the crap out of stuff. And yeah, you can do reshoots, but really you got to get the meat of what your story is and what your performances are when you're on that set during principal photography.
Right. And I think a lot of people that maybe have never been exposed to a professional set really don't understand what an assistant director does. Could you, for someone maybe that's unfamiliar, has never set a foot on set before, briefly kind of describe what the role of an assistant director is?
Yeah, it starts out with scheduling, right? The production hands me a script and says, we want to do this script in this many days, figure it out. And that's where it starts. That's the AD's first input is really building a schedule. And that's where the strength is. When I first started, there was a film or two where they said, we already have a schedule. And I didn't like that, but I live with it. Now it's actually a deal breaker for me because I feel like if you don't want me to do your schedule, then you don't really know what it is I bring to the set. So, I don't know if you really want me as an AD because I do care about the AD position. I think it's incredibly important, even though the only decision, it's very strange for people to hear this, but I don't really make decisions, right? All I am is an advisor. I'm like the hand to the king. I tell the director and the producers what I think the best plan is. And a lot of times they will listen or at least take my account into their decision making, but I don't get to make the final decisions. But I feel like in the best circumstances, I have a very big say because my opinion matters because I know the material so well. So it starts with doing the schedule. Then the next step is learning through conversations with the director about that schedule and about the script. You start learning what that director's dream is and what their vision is. And then that becomes my goal is to give them as close to their vision as they can achieve because that's what I am. I'm the right-hand person to director. I'm the person that the director turns to say, I want this, I want that, I want another take, I want to do this scene again. I want to rewrite the scene, I want to rework the whatever. And they will talk to me about what that means for them from a time standpoint in our day. The timing of a day is incredibly important. A lot of movies these days, a lot of you basically have now $100 million movies or, $6 million movies. There's not a lot in between anymore. When I first started, there was a lot more. I work on a lot of films where there isn't a lot of money for overtime. So time management, which is my second biggest skill set after the scheduling, becomes hugely important because now you have to stick to the schedule and make the schedule happen in the time frame you've set. And that's why we go back to the scheduling being so important, because if I don't do the schedule and I don't honestly believe I can make a day, then that needs to be notified. I give them what I call red flag days, which are days that they are aware I'm worried about the amount of work we have versus the amount of time. And then when we actually get to the set, it's sort of like being the ringmaster. Like I'm standing next to the director and I'm running the set for the director. Like I tell my friends who aren't in the film industry, it's the director's movie, it's the director's film, but it's my set. You know, I call the key grip my key grip. I call the DP my DP. I call my director my director because I feel a true sense of obligation and loyalty to them. And so I feel like both how I treat people on set, how I react to problems that happen on set is all very important because I'm like the quarterback of a football team. I'm one of the only people that's going to be involved in every single play, every single take, every single everything. I'm telling the crew for the director and for the DP what it is we need, what we need to do, what areas need to be locked up, what windows we can't see through, where we can't have lights, where we can't have noise. I'm the one communicating all that from the people above me who are the actual creatives. So that is incredibly important because I've learned over a course of time. I used to say that I had no talent, and I'm glad I do this because an AD doesn't really need talent. But then I realized that my communication skills and my ability to deal with stress and problems on set is a skill set. You know, like I've been very, very lucky in my career. I've worked with some of the greatest ADs ever. And one of the best, his name is Joe Camp III, big time AD from LA. He taught me, he's like, when everyone else around you starts to like run around and lose their head and something's gone wrong, someone's gone hurt and there's an emergency type situation, he's like, that's when you need to slow down. That's when you need to put in the thought. That's when you need to become a good leader. And when all said and done, I think that's what I would say being an AD is being a true leader on set that people can feel they can speak to. People feel that they're being respected and treated well by me and that their opinions are being heard. Now, that doesn't always mean that everyone gets everything the way they want it. You know, I have to give people bad news all the time that the directors decided that their take is not as important and we're going to do something different. And, you know, that sometimes makes people, you know, unhappy, but that's part of the gig too. You know, I tell people don't become an AD if you want to win popularity contests. But I will say this, although I'm probably not the most liked person on any of my sets, I truly think I'm always one of the most respected. I think I try very, very hard to make sure everyone knows that I am giving everyone the benefit that I'm giving everyone their professional courtesy and treating them as a human being and the respect and professionalism that they deserve, even if I don't always agree with their opinions or certain things that are happening on set.
No, for sure. And the AD is almost never the most liked person on set, and that's okay. Just by nature of some of the creative side of folks that get told no, they don't like that, so you're not going to be their favorite person. But yeah, you made a good point. I very much think some of the stuff you mentioned, time management, organization, is a skill set because it's something you continually improve over time and master at a point. Donald Sparks, who's a frequent collaborator with Denis Villeneuve, had a good line about your position. He said, at its simplest, the AD is the manager. At its most complex, we're actually the central processing unit because all info filters through you. Like you said, it's every department comes to you, every technical, creative, whoever, they all have to kind of filter things through you. So, but I do like your analogy too of being hand of the king. That's a timelier reference.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's true. And I think because so many people have seen it, that's why I use it, right? It's a reference that a lot of people can touchstone. And yeah, I think that is smart. And there was another one too. Natalie Portman just had an interview not too long ago where she said she would rather have a director. She said a film will be more successful if they have a director who doesn't know what they're doing rather than having an AD who doesn't know what they're doing. Because there's really, the one thing about being an AD is there's nowhere to hide. Like I said, I don't really actually make decisions. That's not completely true either. You know, I definitely have parts where I go to the director and say, this is what we need to do. But of course, I need their approval. And that's why it's not really my decision, because if they say absolutely no, I will tend to you know, try to persuade them. But there are times when we're physically on set and people are like, should we do this? Should we do that? And I'm making quick decisions, and I always circle back around with my directors and DPs to make sure that I said the correct thing. But the main thing is if your communication is wide open with your director and your DP and you already know what they want, then you already have those answers. And it doesn't matter that they're not yours, but you're the one giving them to the crew. And that's where that sometimes resentment and frustration comes, because, they come to you with an idea and you're like, no, we can't do it that way. I know that would be easier for your department. I know that would make things easier on this front or that front, but we've made a determination, we've made a decision, and we have to go with that. And that's incredibly important. Like, the AD has to be trusted by the director and DP to keep their vision at the forefront of the entire movement of the set and the crew.
No, indeed. And about the position, what would you say might be the most common misconception someone would have about the assistant director role?
In the industry itself, I'd say the biggest misconception I come up against all the time is that everyone just assumes that the AD is going to be a dick, right? Like the AD is just going to be a jerk and going to be yelling and screaming all the time. And, so sometimes the first couple of days on set, when I'll ask someone how long they think something will take, they think I'm pushing them. They think I'm trying to take time away from them. When I'm not, I'm just trying to gather information. I have gotten to a point now where I can usually by day 3 or 4 dispel whatever crew I'm working on of that particular notion. But some people don't. You still get it. And then on pretty decent sized jobs too. I was doing a $15 million job where Billy Crystal was the director. And the grips put up a big, 12 by flag in the middle of the street. And the cops, the TCD here in New York, they used to be called TCD, and I think they're called MTV now, which is really weird to me. But the police came over and said, take that down or we're closing you down. So I went over to him. I said, take this down now or we're going to get shut down. And he's like, no, my boss has to tell me. I was like, what do you mean your boss? I am your boss on set. And he goes, no, the DP is the only one. So I went and got the DP, and, the DP did yell at him, and he was kicked off set for a couple of days. And so there's always going to be some, friction on set because, you're averaging between 20 and 100 people on set. So that's a lot of personalities, and not everyone's going to get along in every single way, shape, and form. But for the most part, they come thinking that I'm like management and they're the worker bee and I'm not going to be on their side. And the truth of the matter is much more that I am more on their side than the other side. Like, people talk about the line, above the line and below the line in film. I think the AD is the line. He doesn't belong on either side correctly. He just sort of is the line. He is the communication between the above the line and the below the line people. And that puts that person in a weird predicament that he is giving sometimes, or she is giving marching orders to people who aren't 100% directly work for them. You know what I'm saying? So you've got to learn how to work that minefield. And the people I watch and the way I've come about it is you do that with professionalism and respect. Because if you're always treating people with respect, even when you're questioning them, even when you have a disagreement with the way they've done something or think that they're at fault in some way, shape, or form, if you keep and you maintain a complete professionalism and a calm voice, and you don't get angry and you don't get snippy and you just make your point known, then usually that gets the point across. And I find that I don't really have that problem anymore after the 3rd or 4th day, except for maybe a random person here or there.
That ties into my next question. Besides kind of being in that situation where you have to toe between the above and the below the line, being the line, which I think was a great metaphor. Besides that, what would you say are the biggest challenges in your role as an AD?
I'd say constant self-stress relief, because what I do as an AD is not easy. Like I don't have a big ego. I'm very humble on set. I don't do this and that, but I also am aware that what I do, not a lot of people can do. It is a very, very stressful, in the moment, nonstop express train, right? Like there is never a time where I'm not working. Even if the electrics and grips are lighting the set for an hour, I don't get to sit down and have coffee and relax. I'm starting to think about, okay, they said an hour. Is it really going to be an hour? I've got to watch because it's going to be an hour and a half. This could be a problem because I've got the schedule to keep. If it's going to be a half hour. I've had this problem too. They said an hour, now it's going to be 20 minutes. Well, now my actors aren't going to be ready, and now we're going to be standing around waiting for actors. I don't want that to happen either. So I've got to pay attention to every single thing that's happening on set to make sure that I'm on target. But then I'm thinking about the future. Okay, are we going to break early? Are we going to need to take a penalty for lunch? Are we going to make it, by the end of the day? What time is the sun going down? What is my last daylight scene? What is my background situation or all my background here? And then, you have the day-to-day, I don't know what you'd call it, silliness of set. You have actors, you have hair, makeup, wardrobe people, a whole other world that's not right there on set with you that you only see when they come to set. And there's a lot happening back there. And you're getting calls that your actor's up out of his chair and on the phone. So now he's not going to be ready in time. Or, maybe this actress has decided she's going to go get a cup of coffee. Or, there was one time when I did Get Rich or Die Trying as a second, we we actually had a separate channel that the only people who had that channel were the 3 ADs and the first team person, so we could discuss 50 Cent because he was quite a character, and we had a lot of issues going on with him all the time. So it's just a nonstop barrage, and like I've said before, you can't afford to lose your temper. You can't afford to lose control of the set because people are looking to you, and shit rolls downhill. So if I'm going to start getting angry and I'm going to start yelling, or the AD is going to start yelling, then other people's anger is going to start to peak, and then the whole set can go off. So it's about taking the leadership really, really seriously and saying to yourself, I have to be an example. I have to keep my cool together. I have to make sure that I'm okay. And that's not always easy. That can be a difficult job, especially when all these things I was saying, I'm getting problems from hair and makeup and the grips are falling behind or going too fast. And then I get a call that the actor missed his plane, isn't going to be in tomorrow. So I've got to rework tomorrow's entire schedule. And when am I going to do that? Because, all I'm going to get is 15 minutes at lunch to sit down and try to rework the whole schedule. So I got to start to be able to do that while I'm standing there. So I've actually trained my brain I do not have an eidetic memory, but I kind of do with a strip board. I can now, after I'm in a mood, once we start shooting and I've been working with the same schedule for, 4 or 5 weeks, I can sit there in my brain and maneuver the strips and then send that to my second AD. So I've had to teach myself all the different tricks so that I can manage my own time, so that I have all my time to manage everyone else's time. Maybe that doesn't make sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, we got it.
I'm getting flashbacks from stressful days on set just listening to you, so I can totally appreciate the stress management. I want to ask the opposite question now. What is the best thing about being an AD that people may not realize? What's really rewarding and fulfilling for you?
It's weird because you don't get to do it as much as a first as you did as a second or a second. But one of the most fun, creative things we get to do as an AD is set background. And, I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on the back. Sidney Lumet actually once said to me that I set background better than any AD he'd worked with. And I thought that was amazing. This is a legend of film telling me that I do my job one of the best he's ever seen. And there is something about when you set background, you have the classic thing where the beautiful woman's walking down the street and the crowd opens up and you start on her feet and you go up. When you do something that this is so perfect, you love that. And that is definitely one where you actually get to see it on film. Other than that, it's just one of my skill sets is thinking outside the box. So, they'll come to me yeah, this actor's not coming tomorrow. So what are we going to do? And I will, in a couple hours, have ideas of maybe moving this character into a different scene. What if he says the things in this scene and he says it in a different scene, so you still get that information, but we can still shoot this scene tomorrow because we're not going to get this location back. And when you come up with the solution that no one else could, and it saves your director and it makes them happy and makes them closer to the vision they wanted, then that's when I pat myself on the back. I'm like, yes, but that's unseen. That's very much just for me, really.
I don't know how you're not still riding high from a compliment like that from a legend like that. I'd write that down and frame it. But yeah, that's very cool. kind of piggybacking on what Becky was asking too, not just the bad and the good, but you talked about memorizing the boards and stuff. Is something stick out in your mind as maybe the most complex script breakdown you've ever dealt with to date? Did you have one of those like Anything Everywhere All at Once kind of movies where you had to really tackle it a different way?
No, I wish. I always talk about, like, if you're in the NFL, you want to make it to the Super Bowl. If you're, in baseball, you want to make it to the World Series. God, if you're an AD, you want to have AD, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, right? That's everything. That's like 3 movies at once with a cast of dozens and locations. Like that would be the ultimate. I've done a couple of sports movies. Those are fun. I did a TV show. This was actually kind of cool. I did a TV show. It was like a reenactment show called The West. And I don't remember the exact circumstances that happened, but I basically got to stunt coordinate an entire fight scene between 12 Indians and 12. They weren't military. They were just, woodsmen. But it was really cool, getting to do that. I don't want to direct. I don't have this inner need to direct. But, one of the biggest things, and I can't believe we've got this far in the thing, I haven't said it. The one place where I've really become a person that is more difficult to deal with is when it comes to safety on set. I've been a hard ass about safety long before it was in vogue, before the 2 big incidents. And I used to get a lot of pushback. I've been fired from a job because I wouldn't work the kids over the amount of hours that they're allowed to work. And the producers didn't like that. So safety is always front in my mind. As much as I love making film and I love it more than anything in the world, other than my children, there's nothing about what we do that requires someone to get hurt unless it's an accidental thing, that happens to the stuntman and every precaution was taken, or happened to crew members, something you could not have foreseen. But I'm very proud that no one's ever been hurt seriously on any one of my movies that I've been the AD on. And that record means a lot to me.
No, and good on you, because, yeah, it's sad that it's in vogue for the wrong reasons, of course, for the past decade with Slates for Sarah and the most recent thing with the Rush shooting. But no, we're glad to hear that that's first and foremost in your mind for sure. And it should be in every AD's mind, let's be honest.
I had a moment where it almost wasn't. I kind of looked and I said, I've hurt my career a little bit with these refusals to do certain things for certain directors and certain producers. So I got this one job and it was pretty decent sized. And I said to myself, I'm not going to be that guy. And then I get on set and the first thing they want to do is put the sound guy in the trunk and run a red light. And I was like, if you do that, I'm shutting this whole thing down. And I didn't mean to say it, and I meant it, and I meant it wholeheartedly. But I was like, no, we're going to find a different way to do this. This is just not how we're going to do this. There's going to be another way. And it just so happened that I was with a really good set of producers. And when the director turned to producers, I can't, what are we going to do? And producer Tony said, we're going to do exactly what he says. We're going to find a different way to do it. And it was nice to, finally not be having to go against the grain on the safety issue, because that has been, I did my first job as a first AD in 2001. And so I've been doing it for a long time. And it's only really the last 8 to 10 years where it's starting to come around and people are paying better attention.
Yeah, like I said, I hate that it takes tragedy for that to happen, but I am glad to hear it's happening more and more, and you're noticing it too. It's funny you mentioned running a red light guy in the truck. I was going to ask you, by design, what's the biggest thing that you've had to shut down or halt or relocate? Have you guys had, I know you've worked on some very large movies. Is there an insane lockdown scenario anecdote you have of just shutting down a New York street or something?
Yeah, I'd say the one that I think was most impressive, I got a lot of, it was that show I was just telling you about where I went on to it. I came in the last few episodes, and the other ADs were moving on to other things, and they had this huge car chase scene that had to go over the 59th Street Bridge. So it starts in Queens, gets onto the bridge, goes the whole way over the bridge, then goes off into Manhattan, onto the street, and ends on this street in Manhattan on 57th, I think, or 60th, right when you come over the 59th Street Bridge, and the one you can go straight onto. And we were not given a lot of time by New York. We basically had like 4 hours. So we had to plan this thing to the umpteenth degree. And we had 18 moving cars, and 7 of them were stunt cars. And we had, 2 camera cars and 4 cameras. And we had, a 32-point lockup with 7 different ADs, because I wanted at least one AD as a captain at every major, crossing or entrance or exit onto the bridge, because all they would do is shut down one side for a little while, let us get on there. Then once we were halfway through, they'd open up that side and then start closing down the other side. So I'm in the camera car behind the hero vehicle, but I'm also closing down the other side of the bridge for when we do the turnaround and getting the okays from. So it's one of those points where it's constant. Like I have one walkie where I'm on with the camera guys. I have one walkie where I'm on with the stunt guys. And I have another one where I'm on with my AD team. I didn't even have one for the PAs because I couldn't get into being able to talk to all of them. So we got in three go rounds. It was pretty, even the police captain was like, wow, that was impressive. Because everything just went according to plan. Everything, we had mapped it out down to the last movement of the last wheel of the last car and when they pulled in. And it went nearly perfect. We actually had to do it twice because the first time we got shut down because of rain. We got one run through, then it stopped. Then we had to come back, and we went back on Easter Sunday and had to shoot it on Easter Sunday. And again, I try to be humble, but that was a really cool, really awesome thing that we did.
No, very cool.
Yeah, when you have the police complimenting you, you did something right. So earlier you mentioned that you don't have any interest in moving into directing, and I'm glad you brought that up because, ADs are under the Directors Guild, but it's not necessarily a position where everybody in that role wants to move on and become a director, despite the name. I think people make that assumption. Curious for yourself, have you thought about, expanding into any other roles like producing, since it has maybe some similar skill sets? Or you said, ADs are born. So were you born to be an AD and that's where you're going to keep kicking ass?
And that's I don't want to produce. I don't even want to be the PM. Like I don't want to spend my time in office on the phone making deals for dollies and cameras and negotiating with the key grip for their rates and this and that, the other. Like, I want to be on set. And I know that it's not the end of most people's trails because there are positions specifically higher that would be a natural move to. But I find that the AD does what it is I want to do. I want to be on set. I want to be there next to the camera. I want to be there next to my director. I want to be there next to my actors. I want to be on set with them. It's a special kind of camaraderie. You hear it all the time when they win their awards. Oh, we're like family. We're like this. They sort of are, because just the amount of time you're spending, you're spending 12 to 15 hours a day with the same people for anywhere from 2 to 6 months. And on top of that, you might be working Wednesday to Sunday, right? Or Saturday to Wednesday. So your Monday night might be your big night out to to go out and have some drinks, and no one else in the universe has Monday off or Tuesday off, so they can't. So you almost end up spending all your time with your crew, and then when you're on location, those are the people so you end up, going out to bars and going out to restaurants and going to movies and going bowling and going swimming and fishing with that crew, and you just spend so much time, you naturally always find a few people that you become your closer friends that like doing the things that you like to do and spending time with those people. So I'd say most of my friends now I've met through the film industry as opposed to the ones I had in high school and college, because they also understand better. It's hard for someone outside the industry to understand that you might just disappear, literally just disappear out of their lives for 3 months. But if you're shooting in California and they live in New York and you're 3 hours different, so when you get out of work, it's already 2 a.m. that you can't even call them, and you're there for 3 months and you're working these long hours, and then spending a lot of time on weekends. If you're not resting and relaxing and trying to recoup, you might have work to do, especially as an AD, because there might be rain. So now you got to start working out whether the weather cover is going to hold that you built in the beginning, or you lost location. You have to meet with the location department director and start figuring out what your next answers are. So from that point of view, That's why I love set, because that's where, and that's also what I know. That's what I do well. So I like being there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think there's definitely a special feeling magic on set that's kind of hard to describe if you've never experienced it. And it's stressful as hell, but then you can't wait to get back. It's kind of a bizarre relationship sometimes you have with that feeling of being on set. So last question of our more formal interview portion before we jump to kind of the fun rapid fire. Any advice, any high level sort of general advice for someone that might be working their way through the AD pipeline?
The best I can say, again, because I really do believe that the best ADs kind of already, there's some things you can't teach, right? Like you can learn a lot, but if you don't have a certain way of thinking, if you don't have a certain knack with your communication skills, it's going to be hard for you to become very successful, because those things are so important. So for me, I would say, if you're on a set, pay attention, ask questions. Like the key to my success for me, and again, I'm not bragging. I'm not the most successful AD in the world. I'm very average to below average. I work hard, but I put in my 110%, and I've never worked with anyone who at the end of it was like, wow, you didn't work hard. You didn't really give it your all, did you? Like, I give it everything I have every time. So for me, it's just keep working. Like if you find yourself not busy on set for 2 minutes, you're doing something wrong. Ask someone if you can help them. Look for someone to help. Look for someone to ask questions to. Make yourself the person that no one wants to lose. Make yourself that person that if he doesn't show up for set that day, people are going, oh man, that person's on a set. This is going to be a tougher day. That's the person you want to be. You want to make yourself indispensable. That is the main thing. And like I think if you follow that leads you towards the AD department, because the AD department is very indispensable. Like it'd be hard, and like I said, Natalie, and I believe it was Natalie Portman. I could be wrong on that, but I believe it was Natalie Portman who said she'd rather have a very skilled AD than a very skilled director. And that's because there's not many people on set who can help an AD if they're doing a bad job, right? If the director's having problems, there are producers who understand directing. There are ADs who understand directing. There are DPs who understand directing. There's always someone there to help and lend a hand. There is no one on my set other than possibly my second AD who can think the way I do and has all the information I have and can be of great use to me if I'm having a rough time. And that's not because I'm smarter than anyone else. It's just because, like we've discussed before, I'm the center of the communications, right? I'm like that old, when they first had telephones, the operator who you had to talk to every time. Can you connect me to this? Can you connect me to that? That's me. The producers have talked to me about their frustrations and worries about the budget. The directors talk to me about their worries about, how many takes we're getting or how the actors are performing. The actors have talked to me about their everyone has spoken to me and has given me their view of how things are going, how things could get better. And no one else has all of that information. So I don't have many people I can turn to who can help as much as with other positions.
No, sound advice, everything Michael just said. But yes, appreciate the answers all around from this interview. And we're going to segue from here actually over to the Rapid Fire 15, which I gave Michael a little prep to ahead of time, that it's sort of a inside the actor studio Proust questionnaire of sorts, but kind of genre bent and toward your taste. And as Michael, I'll tell the audience here, as he jumped on this call with us, he had both a Miami Dolphins jersey on and a giant Kiss cup. So tweaking questions as we went. So this should be fun. And again, I have no doubt he'll have some quick answers to this. Long story short, it's just kind of first thing that comes to mind. We're not giving you like a cool test so much as just you don't have to think too hard about it. But we'll jump in if you're good to go.
I'm ready.
All righty. Question number one. Thing we usually ask first off: what movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Either Godfather or Braveheart.
Oh. Most people choose like a really fun, sort of like popcorny movie, but I like that you went with some more, not exactly like easy watches.
I know, I was going to say, these are like, you got to commit to these movies.
Yeah,
One's 3 hours long almost.
I love it. All right, question 2. Is there a movie, a TV show, or a song that always makes you emotional or brings you to tears?
Brings me to tears. Yeah, there's a couple that like, if I want to cry, there's a movie called My Sister's Keeper. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
It's very, 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 very sad. And like when I need, like, one of the things I do when one of my stress reliefs is sometimes I come home, you just need a big cry. Like, you had a rough day on set and, nothing actually brought you to tears, but you just have this tent and I'll just throw on My Sister's Keeper. And boy, when the courtroom thing starts and they get that little girl on the stand, heartbreaking. And then I have two songs because they both remind me of my daughter. One is Butterfly Kisses, which reminds me of my oldest daughter. And the other one is, I think it's called You're Beautiful by something Cranston. I'll look it up. But keep going. I can't think of the name of it.
No, all good. In a similar vein, what's the first film that really scared you, maybe in your youth? What stuck with you or gave you nightmares? An early horror movie, maybe?
Now, do I have to say you want the first or you want the scariest?
Well, give us both if you have an answer for both.
The first is The Exorcist, because I'm of that age. So that was one that I had to see, as a teenager, be like, oh, I could take that. But then as an adult, I saw The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and that was scary, scary, scary.
It's funny you mentioned two possession movies. Maybe that's a thing that gets to you, but maybe we'll have a question about that later. What is your favorite horror movie franchise, if you have one? Like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th?
I like the Screams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good.
I liked the original. I like the original of Saw, but then I think it just went off the rails.
No, Scream's a good answer and pretty common one we get for that question as well. But yeah, for Becky's point about you mentioning exorcism, do you have a favorite horror subgenre? Like, does possession get you the most, or is it slasher, or is it psychological, or something to that effect?
Well, I just like a good film, so I'll take anything. I mean, if I had to have a subgenre, it would probably be vampires. I think it's cool that like every vampire movie gets to reset the rules, right? Like, in this one, they don't like garlic, and this one, garlic's not a thing, and this one, cross is a big deal, and this one, it's not. And you get to do that and create your, decide how your vampire is going to be. And I find vampires kind of cool. I mean, when it comes to that, Underworld could be that too then, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Question 6. What is your all-time favorite TV sitcom?
Cheers. Love that show, and I came up with that show, it started in 84, right when I was becoming a teenager. So yeah, it's just, and I just rewatched it recently. And listen, there's probably a good dozen or 2 dozen that need to be scrapped, episodes that don't really work anymore due to our new understanding of the universe and social mores. But it held up pretty well.
Yeah, no, agreed on both counts. The comedy writing is still very tight. And there's hardly a show from the 80s that you can say you couldn't scrap at least 1 or 2 out of for that reason. So you've shown your age a little bit with you seeing The Exorcist, but this question is usually a little revealing too. Number 7, who was your first celebrity crush?
Molly Ringwald.
Nice. Question 8. Oh, do you have a...
He's like, no commentary. Let's move on.
Oh, well,
no, I'm kidding,
Michael looked like he maybe had another thought. I was like, was there someone else besides Molly Ringwald?
Well, it's Molly Ringwald and Demi Moore. But, I think Molly Ringwald was first, and you said first, so I'm just trying to be...
No, that's all good.
Trying to be precise here, because this is pretty important.
Well, he is an AD. We got to make our day here.
All right, question 8. What's the best New York City food, in your opinion? And where would you take somebody that was coming to visit NYC for the first time? Like, where are you taking them to get them the good stuff?
Okay, that's a really difficult question because I honestly think New York has the best food in the world. And like, I could tell you where I would take them if they want to go and get, Cuban food. I can tell you where I would take them if they want to go get Italian food. I can tell you where I would take them if they want to have a burger. I think classically pizza is, New York's best, what we do better than anyone else. But I think that's so, I'm going to go burger, and I'm going to go to, Pete's Tavern, which is just east of Union Square. It's this very famous, very old tavern, and they make about the best burger I've ever tasted in my life.
Very nice. Writing that down.
But I mean, I honestly think you could, there are some steak houses that are just amazing. There's one called Uncle Jack's here. There's another called Angela Maxi's. If you're into the steakhouse scene, that is amazing. Like I said, there's great Italian food. There's great everything. And it just depends on your inkling of the day.
You're right. It was kind of an unfair question, right? There's just too many answers.
Yeah, New York has too many answers because there's so. I mean, I just for Father's Day this year. I don't know if you've ever heard of Smorgasburg. It's just like a street fair. And on Fridays, they're in Williamsburg. And Saturdays, they're in Manhattan. And on Sundays, they're at Prospect Park. And it's just all these different food vendors. And everything I ate there was amazing. And then there's the hometown buffet in Red Hook, where the pastrami bacon is probably the second best meal I've ever had in my entire life. But the first one was in Italy, so that's not fair.
Oof, now I'm hungry.
I know, we're getting hungry. It's funny because you might have answered this with the talk of the food, but you've been mostly New York based in your career. And the question was going to be, when you're away from New York for a shoot, what is the thing you miss the most? Is it the food? Is it just something about New York City and the atmosphere, the vibe of the place? Or what is the thing you miss about New York most?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I miss my kids the most. That's what I miss when I'm not home. Even though I don't live with them, I see them quite often, and they're a big part of my life. But besides that, I think it's just the way New York works. Like if I get hungry at 1 a.m., it's okay. I'm not done for, I can get food. I can order food. I can be on a train and be in Union Square in 45 minutes from my door, and there's everything I need there. Any kind of food I want, any kind of shopping I want, movie theater, there's everything. I know New York City so well. It's when I go someplace else, I'm like, sometimes like, well, what am I going to do today? And if I go eat there, am I going to be happy about it or it's going to stink? Because I, lived this life pretty long now. I'm getting old. And I have my favorite places. I have my favorite dishes. I have my favorite, ways to see a movie and do this and do that, the other thing. Like nothing drives me crazy than going to a movie theater and they have Pepsi instead of Coke. It drives me crazy.
That's everywhere to me. Any restaurant that does that. Is Pepsi okay? Not really, no.
No, it's never okay.
No, Pepsi's the worst.
All right. So mentioned earlier, Miami Dolphins fan. What is your favorite sports memory?
Of mine or like as a spectator?
Let's say as a fan, I think that's how I was kind of rating it. Like, do you have a championship reign or something that happened that was really memorable?
Without question, it's when the Mets won the 1986 World Series. I was there at Shea in Game 6 when the ball went through his legs because I was a vendor. So I wasn't like, I didn't get to ticket and go to watch, but I was working and I was there. And it was amazing. And I'd say that's tied with, I will be honest, I was also at Shea Stadium the very first game after 9/11 when we beat Atlanta and Mike Piazza hit the home run. And I like 9/11 was a rough time for me, and my grandfather died exactly a week later. So like I literally went from his wake to the baseball game, and it was incredible. It was probably the most emotional moment of my life, other than my kids being born.
I can imagine the catharsis of all of that happening for a myriad of reasons. But yeah, I remember that memory just from television as well, the Piazza home run. But yeah, that was very cool that you were in the building for the Buckner miss as well.
Yeah. The Buckner miss was deafening. That was an explosion. That was probably the loudest thing I ever heard at that point in my life.
All right. A similar, as far as memories go, do you have a favorite concert you've attended or a very memorable concert experience?
Yeah, I think my favorite band currently is the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And about, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, a while ago, my brother actually won tickets to see them in Madison Square Garden. So we started up in like one of the owner's boxes with all these other people won their tickets off the thing. And then we're brought down to like the second row. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but they put on a show. The Queens of the Stone Age were right before them. So it was just such a great show.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I've never seen Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I have seen Queens of the Stone Age, and they were great live. On a similar vein, next one is also music related. I'm not sure if you're a karaoke person or not, but is that a yes?
Oh, yeah.
All right. What is your go-to karaoke song, or multiple if you have them?
My go-to now is two of them. I like Folsom Prison Blues, and I like Darius Rucker's version of Wagon Wheel.
Nice. I was expecting a little more like classic rock band, and you went a little more like outlaw country. But those are good picks.
I mean, but to be honest, too, like, I'm not like, I don't bring a date to karaoke. Karaoke for me is thing usually do in a group. So a lot of times I'll also try to get like, something stupid going on, like Summer Lovin' from Grease or Paradise by the Dashboard Light, so we can have different people singing the different parts. Like, right. I like to get a group involved at karaoke when it's possible.
Well, you definitely have some music knowledge. So the last music question of the round here is, what would be your entrance music or your walkout music if you were walking out to Shay to get up to bat, or maybe you were coming out for a TED Talk or to fight or something like that? What's your entrance music?
Okay. So this is a little unfair because I already know the answer really easily, because when I'm on set, one of the things I try to do for the guys that work for me, my PAs on my channel, is I give them a question of the day, so that they can have fun. And it's usually, one day it'll be music, one day it'll be movies. And I always ask this, what is your music? And mine is the Imperial March from Star Wars.
I like how you had that ready to go. That is usually the question that stumps everyone, but not you.
Yeah, and I've been through a couple, but I can't imagine anything more fun than walking into that dum 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 dum,
Yeah.
Michael just spent an hour telling us he doesn't want to be feared but respected. Meanwhile, he comes out to the Imperial March Emperor's theme.
Question 14. So let's say you had the opportunity to program a double feature of any two films in the world to show off kind of yourself. Maybe you're two wolves. Like maybe it's two films that don't really go together, but they showcase you as a person, or however you want to frame it. What would be your double feature?
Yeah, that's a tough one too, because there's so many now that are so good, and it's like, do you want to be? There's a movie called Mr. Brooks. Have you ever seen it?
Oh yeah,
the Kevin Costner.
Yeah,
yep.
Love that one. I think that is just so well done and so fantastic. I love that, and I think another one that because there's so many ways to like movies for us, right? Like, I mean, I could show Lord of the Rings. I could show, because that would be like the AD in me. I could show, The Dark Knight Rises, so, or The Dark Knight is so good. But, a movie I thought was just so, so brilliantly well done that you go back and watch it and still not see what's so obviously there is The Prestige. Have you ever seen The Prestige?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I've gone back and watched it, and you've both seen it, right? So I'm not spoiling anything.
Oh, sure.
I cannot tell it's him in both parts. You can't see it. You can't. There's no point where they really just threw it away.
Yeah, I remember being taken in the theater the first time I saw the movie that I did not know that was Christian Bale. Granted, I was a little younger, but once it's like hard to know if you ever didn't know, whatever. But yeah, no, they pull off a lot of things, which I'm going to say that's a good double feature as far as kind of mystery and thriller and stuff. But it sort of segues to the next question. You mentioned Lord of the Rings a couple times, The Prestige being, a trick in its own right and how they pulled it off. But the final question is, we always ask, what would be your dream project, no matter what discipline someone's in film, whether it's actor, director, whatever. But for you, you said Lord of the Rings is a big grand one, but is there like a type of movie? I know we talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once as well, but like, is there something like that you'd love to tackle still? Or is it just kind of grand, giant scope? Kind of a fantasy thing in Lord of the Rings vein, but what is your dream project to AD?
Well, my dream project, would be to really stretch out my abilities, to like make it difficult to like have a lot of moving pieces, moving around all the time. I think of almost any of the really, really good war films would be, I think, really super cool to work on. Less so like Marvel stuff and all the stuff that is mostly CGI. I love stunt. You know what would be a really, really cool movie to have worked on? Do you ever see The Italian Job with Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah, seen the original and that one.
They do all the stunts there were real. There was not one. There was no CGI. So like the helicopter almost taking out the cars and all the car stunts and all the. Although I don't really like car work, I do love stunts. You know what? Maybe doing like a John Wick, that might be super cool too. Because I got to imagine there's got to be so much choreography and stuff that goes into the fighting. You know what I really wish more than I think I could turn any job into fun if the right people are there. I wish like there was a website where first ADs could go and share their call sheets and share their one-liners and share their stories, because like the one thing I never get to do is see another AD on set. Right? Like I never get to be on set when there's another first AD working and see how they handle this, that, or the other. That's like the one thing that's missing in my life. And I understand you could never have two first ADs. It's not a workable scenario. But I think at this point in my career, if the money was enough to live off of, I could like to second something with a really good first AD just to like watch them work a little bit too. Because that's like the one thing that I don't get to do anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, when we talk with a lot of directors, we often encourage them to take other roles on set or try acting once just so you have a better understanding of like how other directors work and what it's like to be in the position of other people on set, that you're leading. And I think you raise a good point. It's like sometimes on set, you don't have if you're in a specific role, you often don't have the opportunity to observe and learn from other people in your own area of expertise. So maybe there's some sort of a meetup group or something, or some type of a AD swapping thing that can happen one day, and you're going to start it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know if other people would want to do that because, like, I also noticed when I was coming up. Again, I have 3 kids now, so when I was coming up, I tended to want to work all the time. So once in a while, I would take a second AD job. Like when my daughter was graduating college, I took a second AD job because I wanted to be able to take days off, and you really can't do that as a first AD. And I noticed whenever I was a second AD in a job where I had already been the first was always very uncomfortable about that. There was always a conversation. So you're not going to try to do my job, right? You're not going to try to undermine me, right? You're not going to steal the, And I'm like, dude, man, I'm here to be on a team. Like for me, filmmaking is all about teamwork. I just want to make the best movie we can, have the most fun. That's another big thing, which, I just want to say, because I don't think I said it once. I think it's so important to have fun when you're on set. Like I think if you're making a movie or a TV show or a commercial or a music video and you're not having fun, you are doing something very, very wrong. Because although it's hard work and it's stressful, there is opportunity for fun and mayhem, which I absolutely adore.
Very, very well said. And I'm glad that's like a great point to kind of end the interview on is, sure, safety is important. All the, everything you said is important. Your scheduling, management, respecting each other, communication, all of that. But at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it? As we're wrapping up, want to ask, is there anything that you want to plug or promote? Anything you have coming up that you want to share? Anything like that?
I was going to, but they just pushed to January. Damn it. So I was like making time. Today was supposed to be my first day of scheduling, actually. So I like woke up at 6 o'clock. I was all ready to go. I was all ready to have a 12-hour day in before we even started this. And all of a sudden they're like, the actor pushed out. We don't know if we're going to be able to do it before he comes back in January.
Ouch. That's not like a month away, 5 weeks away. That's January. That's a bummer. That's the nature of the business sometimes. I'm sure you've experienced in your tenure, but
this is bad though. Right now it's been, so COVID was terrible, right? But then the government helped give us money. They helped us through that crisis. Then things came back. But then that other strike happened. That was pretty bad. But now it hasn't seemed to come back since the writers and actors strike. And even though I hear that IATSE has a deal and the Teamsters seem to have a deal, and at least in theory, it still hasn't, the floodgates haven't opened back up yet. So this is the longest I've been out of work. What is it? 2.5 months now. This is the longest I've been out of work in over 10 years.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. We've been hearing it from all corners of the country as far as production work goes, from like all sides of it too. But let's hope you snag something before January, of course.
Since you gave me a chance to plug anything, I have nothing to plug. I'll plug my daughter. My oldest daughter, Chelsea Meador, is also in the DGA and as an AD. She's still mostly a second, but she key second sometimes well, and she's excellent.
Very cool. But no, Michael, we appreciate the time for sure. And time is a big deal. And I can saying that to a first AD, as you know. So we getting you out in time. We made our day again to call back that.
And listen, I am very proud of my thing, so feel free to put out my IMDb page. I'm very, very proud of my resume and the work I've done. So, yeah, I cannot complain. I'm very happy with the way my life has gone. So there are no complaints here.
And that's all you can really ask for. But we really appreciate your time today and sharing the stories, not just your time, but also like your experience and wisdom. I think it will be helpful to a lot of other people. Hopefully they've learned something or, found bits of it, inspiring for themselves in their own careers. So thank you again, Michael. Appreciate you sharing with us.
No problem. I appreciate you guys giving me the time and the space to say a little bit of something.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Adios.